And welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm joined by a friend I made last year whom I felt we really resonated with each other. We're kindred spirits in a lot of ways. Ali Ghaffari, he is the executive director of the St. John Henry Newman Institute, alongside at least 10 different other hats.
I can't help, just doing one thing. I was just wired to do many things in life, and it brings me great joy.
Sleep isn't one of them, though.
No, I'm never well rested enough, unfortunately. So, but it is what it is. I love my life.
Oh gosh, it's good to see you again. So, tell us about this past year. What has the Institute been doing?
The Institute, it's been a very busy year this year. So the year prior, we were trying to figure out what is that. How are we going to contribute positively to the renewal of Catholic education? Mm-hmm. How are we going to do that? And then this year, we rolled out and we built the machine that was going to help us do that. And so this year there's literally building programs, building a network of schools, and now we're doing it. We're absolutely, we're making manifest this acceleration of the renewal of Catholic education. And so it was really like putting the things in place, building out a website, getting people in the right place, recruiting schools. That was the work of this past year.
Are there other sister organizations that share a similar mission, doing a similar work?
Yes, there's another Catholic one, the Institute for Catholic Liberal Education, and then on the non-Catholic side, there's the Society of Classical Learning, and then also the ACCS, the Association of Classical Christian Schools. So there are others out there, and there may be some others that aren't coming to mind, but yeah, there's a number of organizations doing similar.
And is there kind of a networking partnership between these organizations?
Yes, and it's very collegial because we're all wanting the same thing, right? So they have different flavors and things that make us distinctive from one another, which is good. And there's more work than can possibly be done by even 4 networks. So it's great to be laboring in the vineyard in that way. And they're much smaller organizations too. They're just working on one aspect of it, and so one of the things that we're doing at Newman that makes us different from others, we're trying to bring all of those other small independent things together and then put them front and center with the schools that need them. And so
you and I should talk a lot more than we do, honestly, because this is really one of those things that's at the forefront of my concern, and just being a father of young children and thinking about Catholic education and speaking on it. So let's talk about this question of education in general before we tack on the reality of Catholic education, right? Especially when you go as far back as the Land O'Lakes Conference and Land O'Lake Compact or Agreement, whatever they call it. It was very clear that there was a willful deviation into an embracing of a completely utilitarian model of education. Share with us a little bit of that history, but what that has done to education at large in the U.S.
Yes, that's a great question. And the Land O'Lakes, they basically declared their independence from the church. And so we were going essentially in a direction where we want to run with the Ivy League schools, and we want to be considered one of those organizations and popular like them, and really top in the eyes of the public in the same way. But what they lost with that is the real purpose of education. Education is the formation of the next generation. It is the passing on the best of one culture to the next, and the preparation of that generation for a life of sanctity and holiness in union with God. And that came about in the incarnation of Christ. When he came in the incarnation, he united what was going on in Greece, in Athens and Rome, and the beauty of the classical educational model, which is the formation in virtue and human flourishing, as well as what was going on in Jerusalem, and the revelation and the preparation for the Christian faith and holiness in heaven. And he brought both of those things together in himself and in the Catholic Church. And so when you say that I am separating myself from the church and from God and purposefully in my education, you're really tearing education at its seams. And that's helping, and this was not the contributor to the separation of faith and reason, but it's downstream from that, where that in the Enlightenment, we're separating faith and reason, and to the detriment of both of those things. And so then there's a focus solely on rationality and reason at the expense of faith. faith, and then faith is laughed at, or the opposite is where there's a focus on faith and ignoring reason, right? And that's equally bad. We don't want that either. But those both need to be brought together, and they nurture and enrich one another. And that's in that way you provide a well-rounded, beautiful education, which fully activates the human heart and makes the best possible person that you possibly can, with the virtues and the holiness and all of those things that you want involved in the formation of a child.
And that, therefore, is the entire view of Catholic education.
Yes.
I love that you brought that up. And you and I have talked about it in the past, and we can revisit that in this conversation too, about the repudiation of any faith and the metaphysical in the interest of a very materialistic, empiricist education. But you also brought up the other flip side, which I think is very important.
Yes.
We are seeing an overreaction in communities of faith to what's happening in the culture right now.
Yeah.
And they're becoming fideistic to the detriment of the intellectual tradition.
Yes.
Can you speak to A, why that's not Catholic, and B, why that's detrimental to the human person?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, because God created reason just as much as he created faith, right? And so he is a God of reason, right? He's rational. And that's what separates us from faiths like Islam, where God isn't necessarily tied to reason, right? It is his will that rules. And so if he wants the sun to come up in the west tomorrow morning, or in the east the morning after, or in the north on Saturday morning, he can do that. Right?
He could change his mind,
right?
yeah.
But that's what that does is that puts a chilling effect on reason, and having reasonable thoughts about God and the nature of God and the nature of creation. But that's not the way the world is. The world is rational. God created the world, and his fingerprints and DNA are in the intricacies, in the discoverability of him in every small detail, in the design of the universe, and the way the planets orbit one another, and the mathematics of and the properties of everything that we see, we feel, we touch, we observe, both visible and invisible. There's an order to all of it, right? And all of it points back to God. And so if we get rid of the rationality, we also get rid of God. We don't just get God. God's not only present in the faith aspect of it, he's present in the rationality. And so you tear those apart, you still lose God in that way as well.
Then why the attraction? Why the desire to go down that path? Like, the Catholic Church has known this for 2,000 years.
Yes. I think it's just the equal and opposite reaction, right? Where some people say, we don't need faith. We don't need faith. We're going to make ourselves masters of nature through rationality. We are now it, right? There's no more God. We're gods unto ourselves, right? And then people saying, no, you're wrong. Like, God, we still need to have God. It's rationality that we don't need, right? It's just that we're pushing back into the overemphasis that's just part of human nature, where we tend to go to extremes with things, right? We're just saying, hey, we don't need that. Rather than, and the Catholic Church has been so good about this. The Catholic Church says both and. We need both of these things, and then we need them in proper balance together in integration to make to be right, to be correct, to work together fully. So the Church has always been in that compromising position where it says, we compromise, bring both of these things together, part of the whole.
And in doing so, she presents the world a tremendous synthesis, like no one else can.
Yes.
So we've got about a minute left in the broadcast for this segment. I want to invite you to speak to everyone listening right now about how to think about education rightly, parents, but also children, grandparents, all of them.
Yes, education. The goal of education is to make your kid a saint, right? To prepare them for a life of holiness. And so what does that entail? It entails not only preparing them for college, right? That's a nice byproduct of it, but that's not the end of it. And so a full education includes both faith and reason, and particularly the practice of the faith. And so I would say daily mass, praying the rosary every day, praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet, learning about the saints, actually the habituation of the faith, in addition to the learning of the history and the poetry, the art, and all these beautiful things that make us truly human. All of that together makes a fully educated human being.
My guest is Ali Ghaffari. He's someone I consider a good friend. We met last year. We really hit it off. And he's the executive director of the John Henry Newman Institute. We're talking right now about faith and culture, faith and reason in light of education. The reality of the matter is God designed us to be rational creatures, to be elevated in the order of grace into his glory eventually. And we'll continue this on the other side of the break. We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter. And welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I'm joined by Ali Ghaffari. He is Executive Director for the John Henry Newman Institute. We're talking about Catholic education from a rightful perspective. And so you were touching... Ali, you're completely right. That tendency towards extremes. Yes. Gosh, it's so easy. and so we've done that with our education. And, yes. But we can also understand parents mean well.
Yes.
They went utilitarian because they were told this is the education that's going to get your kids the right kind of jobs.
Yes.
But we paid a huge cost in their souls in the process.
Yes.
And so now the overt swing is because we've seen how it's damaging their souls, and so we're doing this to the repudiation of all that's good in reason.
Right.
I invite your thoughts there.
Yeah, and I think I don't put the blame on the parents on this.
Yeah.
This has been going sideways for the last 120 years or so. And in that time, there was, the idea is we started to look toward, say, the German model was something that became popular in the late 1800s, the Industrial Revolution, all of those things. We thought that we could manufacture things better, right?
Yep.
And one of those things were children. We thought that we could form children in a manufacturing industrial sense in a better way. And I think at that time, mankind was very kind of enamored by this. We thought we really can do this. And so they started to change the curriculum, change the way we were forming children, right? Started to experiment with those things. There was some influence by John Dewey and some others who were really pushing this progressive model of education. Yep. John Dewey himself trying to create a socialist revolution within the educational system, right? And so he was changing the curriculum in very major ways, but it would have been imperceptible for the average parent who's changing diapers on a daily basis, just trying to eke out an existence.
And who's come to trust the public education system.
Exactly, right? Yeah, we hope that the government has our best interests in mind, right? And one of the things that they did was they offered free education up in Massachusetts, right? And so, hey, we'll take your kids, we'll do the formation for you. At that time it was still very Protestant, so we'll teach them the Bible and all those things. And so parents say, why not? That's great. I get them out of my hair. I can do all the other things I need to do faster over the course of the day. And I trust that what's going on is going to be for their good. But what they started to do in the curriculum was to take out the history, to take out the virtue, replace these things with social studies, and start to perpetuate all of these changes, which undermined and eroded our Christian society, and to undermine the parents. And then those people became parents, and then their children became parents, right? And in each generation, the education became weaker and weaker, more and more attenuated, and more bathed in this progressive model. And that was because the teachers in every generation had been formed in all of this. And that's that was the work of John Dewey and the Frankfurt School and Columbia Teachers College, et cetera, is they were forming the teachers. And the teachers, so now the schools began to pump this out and form all the children. And so each generation became worse and worse, or weaker and weaker. And then so parents are used to, and their parents have been saying, you need to go to college to get a good job. Like that is the purpose of education. It's been ingrained in us for generations. And now we just assume it. We just say it because that's what we've heard. That's what we've known for all of our lives. We've lost the sense of what education is about. And so you can't really blame parents today when they say, I'm going to drop my kids off at school. They're going to take care of everything for me. They're going to prepare them for Harvard or wherever, and then a life of work after that, and they're going to live happily ever after, which is completely false. So not the purpose of education.
Amen. And you and I know this personally.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's the way it is. So we're fighting against that now, right? We're fighting against that formation, that malformation, the deformation that we've all received, and we're waking up to that. And that is the work that we're doing at St. John Henry Newman Institute and other organizations across the globe that are working so hard in this movement.
Ali, is there a chink in the armor of that entire narrative? Okay, so we've seen the inflation versus growth of income ratio becomes so absurd, and we've seen that reflected in higher education, right? Tertiary education.
Yes.
Undoubtedly, a bubble is growing.
Yes.
And so is it going to pop? Are we going to see a sudden shift in the narrative because of it?
Yes, and I think it's already popping. I saw a statistic that said colleges are closing at a rate of one a week at this point in time. Because,
in the United States?
Yes, in the United States. And you can find the statistics yourself online, the number of colleges that have closed. And there's a bad part of me that celebrates a little bit when it happens, because all these schools have gone off track, right? And they're doing the wrong, and they're focusing on all these things that don't form children in the way they ought to be formed to be proper adults. And so, and they've priced themselves out of an education, and they've made it less valuable because you emerge. I remember walking up for graduation, and two people behind me, there was a conversation going on. I said, "Hey, what are you going to do after graduation?" He said, "I have no idea what I want to do with my life." Yeah. He's been 4 years and spent over $100,000. And they're no better off, and in fact, probably worse off than they were to begin
intellectually and faith-wise.
Yes, absolutely, in their general formation. And so what are they providing? They're providing a negative product, and they're charging ridiculous amounts of money for it. So I'm happy when those numbers go down. Not to mention there's a population decline as well, and so there are fewer
kids. We're reaching
kids
a demographic cliff.
Yes, and they're fighting over every student now, and so it's tooth and nail for colleges, and so they're facing. They're facing some challenges right now.
Okay, so Christian parents listening to this, what's the future going to look like in terms of continued formation, job prospects, and if you don't mind me throwing the spawn of AI wrench in this country, of AI into the mix?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the formation of your children for heaven is first and foremost. And particularly this classical education model, or classical liberal education, or Catholic liberal education, has many forms. We refer to it as perennial Catholic education, because it's just the education of the church. But what that does is that forms just a great human being, someone who's honest, who's a hard worker, who's intellectually curious about a number of things, who can figure things out, who can learn on their own, right? Who doesn't want that kind of employee? Even if they don't have the technical skills, they want that person because they'll make a good leader, they'll make a good salesperson, you can teach them anything, they're going to work hard at it. That's exactly the type of person who's going to get the job. So it's not the person who's been trained technically. And I taught at the Naval Academy, so I can speak. There are a lot of really smart midshipmen at the Naval Academy, but a lot of them are just engineers, and they've been taught STEM through STEM curricula, and so they just plug and chug in equation after equation after equation, and they've neglected the reading of the great books, the literature, the deep thought, the philosophical thought, the writing, and so what I found was that these kids were tremendously intelligent, but they couldn't write an essay to save their life, right? I wouldn't trust them to write a thoughtful email to a customer, right? Because these kids were just not prepared in that way, right? And
myopic experts, but little else.
Exactly. At the college age, they're so closed in, right? They're so specialized that they are now closed off to many other things that they could possibly be doing. And so I think kids today tend to specialize too soon. They specialize too quickly. So I'd say broaden the education, form them well for heaven, and by the way, as a byproduct, they'll be well formed for any job that they want to do down the road. If they want to do something specialized, they can go and get the specialized training because their mind has been so well formed. And so that goes back to your question about AI. So AI is such a crutch now, and it's something that is terrible and it's poisonous for children, right? If they decide to use that as opposed to forming their own mind and to be able to write an essay, to think about things, or to make an argument, they're actually wiring their brain. They're weakening the structure of their brain as they do that. And so the students who aren't doing that, the students who are studying in these schools that don't have technology like that, they have to write out by hand their essays, right? And they have to dialogue in person with one another. Those students are going to be far stronger intellectually and far better prepared for life than those students who are, head down in a computer and just going to ChatGPT for every assignment. Those kids are going to be weakened and weakened and weakened, and they're not going to be prepared at all for life. And so the kids who are doing this are going to not need the AI, right? They're going to be prepared, and then they're going to be the ones who can then utilize AI. Ought to be a tool, right? It's here. We're not going to get rid of it, but they're the ones who can then use AI in the proper context and not over rely on it as a crutch that would prevent them from otherwise doing, good human work, right?
So we always run out of time whenever we're talking with each other. Just very quickly, as an exhortation to parents, that they don't have to fear the future.
Yes.
Focus on forming saints,
Yes.
and everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely. The kids who graduate with this type of education are so confident, and they're so well prepared, and they're good kids, and they're just loved by adults who meet them. They're just charmed by them because they're very comfortable in the presence. They're confident speaking publicly. They're comfortable talking about issues of the day because they're formed, they're well formed. And so those kids have nothing to be afraid of and nothing to fear in the future. And the world is really at their feet as a result of that. And they have God to lean on when those times get difficult for them. It's the kids who don't have that I fear for.
Well, Ali, just very quickly, so we have about a minute left.
Okay.
For parents who want to learn a little more, find out more about the Institute, what can they do?
Yes, go to JHNI.org. That's John Henry Newman Institute.org, JHNI. And there we offer a great deal of resources, predominantly for school leaders, and we bring schools together in community to help support and form them and help them become the best schools that they can be as Catholic schools and as classical schools. But parents are welcome to come and take a look at what we're offering. We do work with homeschoolers, homeschool co-ops in particular. We'd love to talk to you about your needs and what's going on with the formation of your children.
My guest has been Ali Ghaffari. He's the executive director of the St. John Henry Newman Institute, but he's also a wealth of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to the formation of the human person. All of this comes from a very personal background for him, as well as a directed intellectual curiosity. He's done the work here. And so, as you've been listening to this and watching this, heed a lot of this hope that there is a future out there for our children in terms of good immersion in Catholic education, that we need not go down the path of a utilitarian empiricist worldview, because that won't save the soul. But forming saints will also form good, productive citizens as a result. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.